I'm Doremy, and the work that I'm about to share is called Material Communications. My work is connected to the box of special things that you keep on your bookshelves and the necklace that you've worn for 7 years straight. And our relationship with these things kind of show us that how we have an innate relationship to the objects around us. Objects are evocative, and they've repeatedly shown us that they have the power to bring about complex responses and affect our well-being. I think it's curious how this works and how design might play a role here. It's why I've been focused around exploring this human-to-object relationship and how it's related to our mental health. So I'm defining mental health as emotion and behavior management. In psychotherapy, the tactics that therapists use to affect our emotion and behavior are usually targeting the thoughts that you have and then the actions that you take. But over time, what I've found is that there's a contradiction in the field of cognitive science. The theory of embodied cognition is about how what we experience around us, like landscapes or everyday objects, literally shapes the way that we think. The problem is that existing methods for conducting therapy are lacking this significant variable, the environment. I feel this is a call to design, but we haven't yet provided a strategy that directly addresses this gap. And I have to say that the heart of this work is not in the objects, but the process for design that might be used to impact our well-being. Through this research, I'm asking, how might the process for designing be used to bridge the gap between the material world and the cognitive world? As the first case study for this process, I partnered with a child mental health organization in New York City that offers families with what's called parent-child interaction therapy, or PCIT. This therapy program is specifically for parents with children who have what's called disruptive behavioral disorders. So in this therapy specifically, the point is for parents to avoid giving attention to negative behaviors and instead acknowledging and praising positive behaviors. And to do this, parents learn 3 foundational skills: describe the child's behavior, reflect what the child says, and give specific praises for behaviors parents want to see more of. Clinicians teach parents the 3 skills at the clinic. The therapy room is designed to be ideal: 1 table, 1 set of toys, and just a few chairs. Then, understandably, parents go home and find this really overwhelming when they try to practice. So on top of everything, they've got to remember all that they've learned, as well as basically change their parenting habits. What differentiates using the skills at home and in therapy are mainly environmental differences. And this work's made to help parents practice their skills at home. And this kind of support isn't actually made available yet by parent-child interaction therapy. So I started to think, how can design help begin to ease this gap? So the material communications approach has 3 phases. First, it required me to study the context, so the social and emotional skills. And the second phase, materializing, is about translating these skills into physical form, spatial intervention. And the third phase finally uses the objects to introduce them into a person's life. And we'll be walking through in more detail what each one is and how it works. So in therapy, in this program, the parents need the straightforwardness and solidity and control that they have in therapy and essentially bring it home with them. So what I'm asking is, what if this wasn't just a figure of speech? What if they could literally bring their therapy skills home? This is what the materializing phase is, and it's actually an adaptation of a skill that most of us spatial designers are trained to have pretty early on in our careers. I'm referring to the design exercise where you take an abstract term like movement, for example, and build hundreds of visual forms that represent movement. As part of material communications, this is how materializing works. This phase takes the 3 skills from being complicated concepts and translates them into simple material symbols. So the descriptions I'm about to give are for each object and is the way that the clinicians in PCIT describe the skills to parents. Praise compliments a child on her or his behavior and lets your child know exactly what you like. To reflect is to repeat what your child says and shows your child you are really listening. Behavior descriptions state exactly what your child is doing and holds your child's attention. So for example, in this inner blue mirror and this last iteration of labeled praise could represent the actual action that the child is doing that deserves the praise. and the outer transparent sphere could represent the parents' verbal praise that they're engulfing their child in. So these objects aren't prescriptive. They're meant to elicit memories of insights from therapy. So how do parents learn to use 3 objects? The integrating phase actually focuses on how to induce in a relatively short period of time the same relationship that we have with the necklace that we've worn for 7 years straight. So during this phase, the design process acts as a way to lead conversations and encourage reflection. The conversations I have with parents is made up of 4 smaller dialogues that each serve a different purpose, and the most important of the 4 is designed for the parent to connect the material aspects of the object, like its color or weight, with specific experiences that they've had in the clinic and at home. So while testing the object and observing the weekly therapy sessions, I found that parents aren't anymore overwhelmed by all the new information and expectations. I've tested this research with a handful of families in the therapy program that's based in proven evidence. And I've seen that parents have begun using and practicing their skills more frequently. So the outcome of material communications process is a supportive tool for 2 people to better communicate, essentially. And I've studied the existing conditions of parent-child interaction therapy, come across a gap in the practice that's rooted in the environment, and built a set of metaphoric, memory-eliciting objects, specifically around the concerns of the parent. So over time, though, I'm finding that it's more about our relationship with all objects and how they affect the way we think and what we think. I also argue that this work takes a critical stance on design that's not just speculative or a design commentary. So having previously studied interior design and product design, I've experienced that what we always seem to define as good design are things like technology, functionality, and ergonomics. I think only by intentionally giving respect to the subtle parts of the human condition, we can start to uncover a new meaning for design. Thank you.